everyone, this is Meg with another first impressions video for you. Today I'm going to be talking about Starhawk, the single player sort of campaign. I plan to do another first impressions later on about the multiplayer, but since I haven't got there yet I might as well just stick to the campaign and what I've played so far, so that's what I'm going to do. And so before I get started, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who sent get well messages on my Facebook and my last video. I don't feel great still, but I feel a lot better than I did yesterday, so I thought while I'm feeling in a relatively good mood, I might as well make a video. The story is good so far, but if I'm honest, I think that the single-player campaign could probably do without it. I'll start by saying the cartoon cutscenes are becoming a real pet peeve of mine, and the cartoon cutscenes in Starhawk really didn't hold my attention. I was finding that during these cutscenes, I was going to the bathroom, grabbing snacks, hell even talking during them, which is not what I usually do at all. Like, I can't say I can remember doing this in any game in recent memory. Only with Starhawk. The talking and the dialogue was just really blah for me. I know there were points as a player that I was supposed to sort of emotionally invest in a character or react to the occasional humour that was going on, but it didn't affect me in any way. I think it has something to do with the voice acting. It was quite bland? Not even bland, cliched? I mean, when the characters interacted, there was no chemistry or life. It was like they took the voice actors and separated them in different, I don't know, lots. And had them film their dialogues entirely separately, having never read the character bios before or understanding the story. The cutscenes themselves with the story were also very, very disjointed, I felt. They didn't flow naturally at all. It was very, very choppy. Overall, I would say the story, and this is something coming from me, felt more of an add-on. I don't think they needed it. The game would have been fine without it, in my opinion. Gameplay I'm enjoying a lot in more of an arcade sense. I say this because it has a very arcade style feel to it. Very fun to play, not the most deep gaming experience, but it's just really fun and something that you want to come back to quite a lot. Well, I do anyway. Okay, so firstly I love the ability to call in walls and turrets and watchtowers. I really love it because I think it elevates the gameplay from that sort of bog standard third person sort of shooter thing. I mean, I think it could be quite boring on its own, but that tends to, I don't know, add a strategic element to it. This is not something I'm familiar with. I'm sure there are plenty of people that play this kind of game all the time, but for me this is a first experience, so I'm really enjoying it. Flight is really, really fun in like an old school sense. There are pros and cons to it. On one side I found it really hard to maneuver, like I couldn't turn past a certain point, and barrel rolling really didn't help, so I found myself sort of playing catch-up to the hawks that I was supposed to be attacking while they flew circles around me. On the other hand though, I think flying to this really epic soundtrack and shooting a lot of things and picking stuff, it's just really, really fun experience, even with the flaws. And I guess the flaws help make it a more challenging experience, because once you finish these flight levels, you feel proud of yourself, because despite the difficulties, you made it and you really kicked butt. I also liked the inclusion of the vehicles. I think I really liked the Sidewinder. It felt a bit, when I was riding it, it felt a bit like the buggy in Serenity. It had that sort of... I could describe this with words right now, but I'm not going to. On the other hand though, I hated, absolutely hated with a fiery passion the thing called the Razorback, which is a shame because I have family in Arkansas and, you know, Razorbacks. Woo! Pig suey. But it was awful. It was like driving on a butter-slicked plate. Like you try and get up sort of like a hill or something, and it's just, while you're supposed to be going forward and turning left, the buggy's kind of moving backwards like it's sliding. It's like there's this rule in video games that buggies have to be crap. So yeah, I really am enjoying the gameplay. Like I said, it has a very arcade style to it. It's very addictive in that arcade sense. I think maybe that's because the levels are set up in a very short, sweet fashion, which arcades tend to do. The graphics is another 50-50 for me. There are things that I really like about it and things that I'm not too sort of keen on overall. On the one hand, I really liked the bright colour palette in the game. Obviously there's variation between levels, but the overarching sort of colour scheme of aqua blues and greens paired with yellows and golds I felt were really, really pleasing to the eye. All in all, they're really not afraid of colour in this game. I personally feel like if it's done wrong, it can sacrifice realism and make something seem quite cartoony, but they've really made it work for Starhawk. But on the other hand, places can seem quite bland at times, and I think the graphics have a tendency to feel last gen in some areas, like character models. This wasn't a major problem for me. Like I've said before, graphics aren't always the most important thing to me. I'll be impressed if they're really impressive, but if they're not, it doesn't ruin the entire experience. I do want to point out though that there were a few lack of originality moments. For example, in a level called Pipeline, there are these big sort of creatures that look like the gas bags seen on Eden Prime in Mass Effect 1. The soundtrack, to me, is a cross between Serenity or Firefly and the Beyond Good and Evil 2 teaser trailer. More so Firefly and Serenity. There are a few tracks that literally sound identical to music seen in that show and movie. I mean, the whole thing, while I'm on this subject, actually would fit, I think, quite well in Joss's Firefly verse. The best tracks, I felt, played through cutscenes and flying levels. Tracks like Come and Get It, The Pipeline, Hawk Battle, The Outcast and Rift of Pride, I think were all quite unique and offered something really interesting. The same, unfortunately, can't be said for tracks like Prologue, Abandoned Settlement, and towards the end of a track called Homeworld. I think from an instrumental perspective, I like the emphasis on the harmonica. I mean, it's so indicative of the Old West, yet Lennox put quite a spin on it by adding sort of backtracks of big orchestral scores and like electric guitars and synthesized sounds. But as I said before, this tends to really mirror other scores that are already out there. It's not hugely original. That's not to say it's not a great listen. I think the melodies are there, there's a lot of power and emotion behind it, it fits what's going on perfectly, but it's not the first of its kind. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to leave your comments and opinions on Starhawk in the comment section below. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in my next video next week, which will be a mystery. I'll link it here. Link it? I'll write it here. God. Bye! Tissues. Just make sure one's handy at least. Oh, my nose. Whoa. Well, like Frankenstein's bride for a minute there. I'm hoping if I grow it out I can get that kind of Cindy Crawford mane going on. If only I looked like Cindy Crawford. I know I look like I'm going through the menopause. I'm sure you can see me flushing. Oh, I've got some eye. Ah! I'm doing a Bill O'Reilly. I don't know what that hair's doing.